Sony's Fantavision for the PS2, a fireworks-based puzzler from 2000. Get ready to soar to new heights with its almost quarter-century-old pyrotechnics puzzle craze. Inspired by fireworks shows envisioned by this game's director Katsuyuki Kanetaka during his much earlier years, you assume control of a radial reticle as its beam targets every ascending flare of the same color and varied colors as well, and setting them all off, thereby causing one chain reaction of fireworks after another from Earth's cityscapes at night all the way to outer space and beyond. And in case anyone's wondering, the title doesn't pertain to sodas or that Apple II animation program from the 80s by the already defunct Broderbund of Carmen Sandiego fame. Period. Point fucking blank.
Welcome to Fantavision.
Regarding the gameplay, as I've just indicated, the orange reticle that you control is at the center, whose pre-emitted beam is set off and rotated via the left analog stick. According to the pattern of multicolored flares displayed at the bottom center panel next to the play meter at the left, different colored flares will fly up from the ground or from various other random areas off screen in 6 types: peonies and daisies, willow, splash, wide flare, and multi-flare, in red, green, blue, or the randomly appearing wilds in rainbow, which must be captured and detonated as long as they're the same color, minimum of 3, via X and circle respectively. You can also cancel out the pre-captured flares by using triangle and or square in case there aren't enough of the same colored flares on screen, or if any of the flares are best off isolated due to limitations. Time is of the very essence when it comes to plotting and igniting all the ascending flares, so should any of them happen to linger in the air for too long, shit, even if you attempt to detonate the last collection of flares at the very last minute, they'll fizzle out resulting in a fucking miss, which in turn depletes the aforementioned play meter. A game over will thus be declared should the play meter bottom all the way the fuck out. In other words, no continues, no mercy. Therefore, I wouldn't even think about letting that horseshit befall your ass at all costs!
4 chain. 3 chain. 3 chain. Star. 2 daisy. 9 chain.
While you're limited to targeting, aka capturing, a certain amount of flares of the same color, you can also shift to those of yet another color by targeting the rainbow flares, hence the aforementioned wilds, in between before setting them off, thereby scoring a shit ton of chain reactions, and the occasional daisy chains, the latter of which are caused when the sparks of previously detonated flares collide with newer flares of the same hue. In terms of the extra items that randomly materialize depending on your ongoing efforts when you target and detonate all the flares, the E replenishes your energy for the play meter, B awards you extra points, and the stars highlight the 8 letters which initiate an extra bonus scene, hence Star Mine.
5 chain. Star. 8 chain.
Of course, all 8 stars have to be aimed for and set off in advance. Ditto for the up-and-coming rainbow comet that pops up beforehand.
Good. Star. Star. 3 chain. 4 chain. Star. 3 chain. Star. 2 daisy. Star Mine.
The more you capture and set off as much flares as possible, the higher your overall score racks up, not just during the 8 main stages, the cityscapes on both the Earth and the Moon, hence stages 1, 2, 5, and 6, in outer space, hence stages 3 and 4, and the multicolored black holes, hence stages 7 and 8, but also during the Star Mine bonus portions.
10 chain. 9
Either way, the controls are at the very least receptive and obedient, considering how often you'll end up missing long abandoned flares if they're not detonated on time, amongst a few notable downsides. And the gameplay structure is anything but a goddamn repetitious drag, not gonna lie there.
3 chain, 2 daisy, 8 chain, 2 daisy.
Challenge-wise, while there isn't much to what we're experiencing in Fantavision, oftentimes when you're attempting to target as much of the flares as possible, the still lingering flares will still die out if your sense of timing happens to shit the motherfucking bed at any juncture, but you'd still end up miraculously clearing every stage either way, so it isn't that much of a goddamn killjoy regardless. At least the star mine sections between stages are anything but an absolute pain in the ass. Just like the regular stages, you pretty much catch and detonate as much of the continuous flares as possible before the timer runs out. The less I say about the split screen head-to-head mode, where one player is assigned to set off a predetermined amount of flares in record time before the other, the chain attack mode, and even the range of voiceover tutorials, Intelligent Cube much? Amongst the other extra content contained within, the better. The usual hints of sarcasm aside, looking at you Chandler, RIP Matt Perry. My only takeaway hint so far, create as much fireworks-based chain reactions as possible without ruining the time frame patterns. In case any of the isolated flares are unable to be set off, leave only a few of them alone if necessary, and move on to the next area of flares. And most importantly, always rely on the wilds when modifying your focus from one flare color to the other. Did I somehow forget to mention you can also replay your progress while also applying weather effects in the stage's background?
3 chain, 2 daisy.
For an early PS2 title from almost a quarter century ago, and with the purpose of being marketed as a tech demo no less, thanks entirely to the 24-bit particle and transparency effects from the alpha channels, the usual technobabble aside, each and every integral aspect of the presentation doesn't disappoint in the slightest, including but not limited to all the planetary landscapes, the planes and elevators on Earth, the cosmos, the moon structures, and even the aforementioned multicolored black holes. The varying assortment of colored flares from which the 6 firework types are set off are one magnificent sight to behold after another, even after they go apeshit. And call me insane if you must, but the retrofuturistic style intro and stage-by-stage live-action vignettes involving a family of 4, the delivery person consorting with the daughter, the phone conversations between the daughter plus the cosmic kids on the moon and the scientist, or if some prefer the doctor, as unfitting, out of place, and dare I say it, creepy as fuck as they appear to be, or so many have raved for decades ever since its debut, they're nothing short of quirky and appealing, and I sure as shit triple dog dare someone to fight my ass. And despite not being on the same wavelength as, say, Jak and Daxter,
deal harshly with anybody who strays from the village. We will attack it in due time.
Zone of the Enders, Xenosaga, Devil May Cry, Tekken, Okami, you name it. Even coming from the same developer that gave us The Legend of Dragoon, not to mention Ape Escape, Ico, and Shadow of the Colossus, among other notable titles. Holy shit, does it come close! In the music and sound department, performed and arranged by the late great Ashif Hakik, otherwise going by his other aliases, King 88 and BX Dash, may God rest his soul. Known for Tamba 2, The Evil Swine Return, alongside Masaya Hiraoka, Godai Elemental Force, Sly Cooper and the Thieves Raccoonus, Crash Nitro Kart, Crash Team Racing, Nitro Fueled, a series of unfortunate events, and even Inspector Parker and Betrapped, in partnership with a digital Bitphonic Orchestra, with the soundtracks for the Japanese and European exclusives handled by Soichi Terada and Jim Croft respectively. The trendy assortment of upbeat and downbeat techno-pop themes, symbolic of its era in every conceivable way, never failed to please either, though I'm more than certain many will look the other way and prefer Terada's Japan-exclusive songs. Apart from the accompanying sound effects, including but not limited to the flare captures, the intense, albeit sometimes faint, firework explosions, and accidental warps when the flames are both set off and ignored respectively, the in-game and tutorial voiceovers are also more than enough for many to look the other way as well, due to their monotonous nature, but not for yours truly, oh shit no. And from what I've noticed, only the female voiceovers were available in the Japanese and European equivalents. I mean, Christ, talk about being thrown under the bus, in a global sense that is. And before I wrap this all up, take note of my top 6 songs shown here.
5 chain. Bonus points.
Replay value wise, despite not having much to offer, apart from the competitive versus modes, where you're free to test your skills with someone else, in addition to the replay modes, where not only the weather effects can be altered, but more to the point, numerous visual psychedelic effects can also be applied whenever necessary, and especially those aforementioned rule tutorials, the chain attack mode, only available when the normal mode campaign is conquered, plus the screensavers and miscellaneous extra content, at least the near-realistic graphical experience and extreme addictiveness make up for the unbelievably short as fuck playthrough sessions in more ways than one could envision.
Master Chain! Great!
Therefore, in a nutshell, I consider my life an absolute shit show without Fantavision, even without any fucking lights on. Oh, before I forget, there's even a Japanese exclusive follow-up, Futari no Fantavision, or Fantavision for 2, a re-release of the original on the PS4 via the PlayStation Store. In a recent update for the PS5, Fantavision 2020X, developed for Sony by Cosmo Macchia.
Star 2 Daisy 15 chains. Wonderful. Energy up. Bonus point. 2 Daisy 21 chains. Great. Energy.
So, what's my final verdict? Tetris, Dr. Mario, Columns, Puzznick, Sokoban, aka Shove It or Boxel, Puyo Puyo, Bust-A-Move, aka Puzzle Bobble, Luminous. I mean, must I go on any further? With massive respect to these iconic puzzlers that have stood the test of time, not to mention their faithful longtime followers, none of what I've referenced will ever measure up to the wondrous atmospheres and addictive gameplay schematics that Fantavision truly provides by comparison. Once again, aside from the PS2 original, which by the way, is dirt cheap as all goddamn get out, $10 or less easy, it's also available on the PS4 and or 5 as a downloadable via the PlayStation Store. So what the hell are you waiting for, the next 4th of July festival? Get your ass out there and put some serious spirit-lifting spark into your life with Fantavision, cause let me tell you, it's well worth each and every penny, buck, second, minute, and hour alike. Until then, this is the one and only Hardcore Retro Guy triumphantly signing off.